This is a Frank podcast.
It's Warriors Life Podcast 2026, episode 18. Will Evans here with Sam Hewat, first time since 2023, I think. It's pretty exciting. And the Fonz, brought to you by Kingz Container Crew, as always, the greatest container crew outfit on the planet. Head to kingskontainercrew.com for all your container packing and unpacking solutions and the Work With Us tab to get a job with those guys. And also PlaceMakers, experts in the trade since 1981, New Zealand's best trade range. And big fans of those guys down here at This Warriors Life. Sammy, great to have you back, mate, especially at this crucial juncture of the season. Warriors 7-2, we're into the bye. Everything's looking pretty rosy. How have you been, mate? Give us a bit of an update. We're hearing plenty more of you again this year, which is another bonus to this great Warriors season.
Yeah, good to be on with you boys as always. Yeah, I feel like you seem to sort of always get me when we've hit a purple patch at the club. So I don't know if you're keeping me away from the controversy. But yeah, team's flying. Every week I remind people reluctantly that I picked us to miss the 8 because they always go against what I pick. So it's reverse psychology. That's what I'm thinking myself of. So, it's been fun. There've been reasonably fun games to call. And outside of that, I'm a trainee teacher at the moment. So I'm educating the youth of tomorrow on which jersey they should be purchasing every year. So that's pretty much for me. Yeah.
Are you getting, recognised by your students, given your high level of fame at Sport Nation, commentating on the TV these days?
No, the first thing that I got told when, first day of teaching, which I thought was really, really funny, was simply by the fact that you have now become a teacher, you are no longer cool. So any ideas you've got of being this kind of cool person that has a cool job, completely gone now that I'm a teacher. And I feel like that just flows on into, they wanted me to get up in front of the class and talk about what I did for a job. It might really relate to the boys, and they're all just sitting there, hands on their heads, oh, I don't care. What are we learning today? So to your point, Will, no, that hasn't quite kicked in yet, but I have been asked to teach a lesson in my commentary voice. So that's
nice.
That's as far as it's gone. Yeah, didn't do it though, obviously. But too loud.
We were talking before going on here, but very exciting. I was super excited at the time to hear you call a TV game, the New South Wales Cup game. Was it back in round 3 or so, or round 2 or 3? Yeah. Tell us about that experience. Obviously different to radio. How did it go?
Yeah, no,
I loved it. I thought you went great.
I appreciate that. It's a real privilege that Sky asked me to do. Yeah, it was the Magpies game, so that was before the Tigers game. Was that round 4?
Round 4, yeah.
4 or 5. Yeah. Look, you're right. It was very different. I think not only with the challenge of talking to pictures as opposed to talking with radio, but the fact that New South Wales Cup, I knew a lot of the Warriors boys. There were a couple there that were making debuts. There were a couple that weren't stalwart players, so they were ones that I had to do a bit of brushing up on. But like the Magpies, it's 90% of their team I've never heard of before and know nothing about. So that made it quite tricky, just sort of not having that background knowledge. When you're calling NRL, a lot of these guys, a lot of their backstories, the journeys they've been on. So that was tough. And then, I think, as you boys will well know and appreciate, just try not to talk as much is a real challenge for me. So, but look, I loved it. And, if that opportunity comes again, I'd love to do it. I think naturally my dream has always been, watching and growing up with the Ray Warrens and the Andrew Vosses, etc. It's been to one day be in that position. So yeah, hopefully that's where it all heads, but it was a good taster.
Well, certainly hope that it does keep heading that way, mate. You can, I can live my dreams vicariously through you as you get to the top of.
I'll bring you along, mate.
TV contract. Yeah. But fantastic stuff, mate. And well, it's been 5 minutes and we haven't even heard from Fonzie yet. How are you, mate? Over that little gastro outbreak in Sydney there last week. Sounded pretty brutal, mate.
Holding it all together today, which is good. Yeah, look, great to see you, Sammy. We've sort of spoken before and occasionally swap messages on X or somewhere else, but going to put a shout out to Jason. You know who you are. You listen to this and you're involved with the Warriors. Got to get Sammy involved, mate. We're missing a trick if we don't get Sammy more involved with Warriors content and the Warriors club. So, yeah. But no, very good to be here and amazing to be here at a time when we're equal second and 2 points away. You know, if the Penrith had conceded one more try, we'd be equal first after 10 rounds, which is pretty crazy, right?
Yeah, amazing spot to be in. Certainly ahead of similar last year, I guess, a long way ahead of where we thought would be at this stage. But it's the way they've got here too. For me, the way the brand of footy they're playing feels very sustainable to, carry on. Just my first one question I was thinking of before is, how do you boys feel like we are compared to last year? Same record. This lineup is, a lot more question marks around what the best lineup is going forward. And we'll touch on that, I'm sure, a little bit. But yeah, to me, it seems like we're probably better placed to go further this year than last. How do you feel that does compare?
Yeah, I think I was looking at that the other day. I was interested to see. Like, I think I worked out just pre-kickoff with the Eels that it's the best attacking start through the first 8 rounds since 2001. And back then it was only sort of like 10 points in it, if you know what I mean. Like very, very similar to the attack. No, sorry, 2002. That grand final year. So I think that's probably the biggest difference to last year. I think last year at this time our points differential was like essentially 0 or very, very close to it.
Yeah.
So that makes a massive difference. And I think too, the thing that really fascinates me is how every year from 2023 through to now, every year we've had like 2 or 3 completely different players turn into, essentially superstars. And I'm thinking back to like last year, it was Aaron Clark and potentially to an extent Luke Metcalf. You might want to throw Mitch Barnett in there making Origin. This year it's Jackson Ford and Tanner Boyd. It's like every year there's 2 or 3 others that are just moving into this kind of career best era under Andrew Webster. And so I think probably to your point, Will, like Aaron Clark he's no worse than he was last year. He still operates at that level. And those guys, who built on those previous seasons are still there. But we are now, I just feel like across the board, it's just a very, very well-rounded squad. And I think one of the boys on Sport Nation said, like, you'd have to say we've got the best bench in the comp. I mean, I objectively, I think we do have the best bench in the comp. And so I think as a total package, we're through 19 now, 1 through 19, I think we are on paper one of the best rosters in the comp.
Yeah, we still don't quite have those, those spine superstars, I guess, that you usually need to contend for a title, but it's not really seeming to matter. And the guys that are there are, not too far off the very best in the NRL performance-wise.
Question for you then, like who would you put in that bracket? If you were talking about the best spines right now, who do you reckon you'd put in that bracket?
As a club or like as a team spine? Yeah. I mean,
give me like your top 3 spines.
Well, on paper, this is just paper, but obviously Melbourne is right up there, but they're going terribly. Penrith, but again, Mitch Kenny is probably not quite a top 5 hooker, maybe probably on the fringe. So. Yeah, if you talk about it like that, and definitely performance-wise, our spine doesn't lose out to too many in the comp. So,
because I agree with you in terms of when you look at us on paper, maybe don't have that kind of superstar spine that you'd associate with those other teams. But like Fonz, I mean, how do you feel about? There is a time here where like you'd look at that Melbourne spine and that pretty much spine alone would get you very far in a competition and look where they're sitting. And I feel like there's a couple of teams like that on paper spine-wise are looking strong, but they're just not there. I don't know if that's the state of the game. I don't know if that's an anomaly. you'll be better placed to talk about that. But yeah, what do you sort of make, I guess, of how important that piece is to the puzzle in 2026?
Yeah, it's important. So let me start with what I think is the contributing things to the Warriors' success this year, and then how that flows across the other teams, right? So I think 3 different things have made us better than last year, even though on paper, in results, Will or Sammy, you'll tell me, I think we're pretty close to where we were last year in win-loss record at this point.
Same record, yeah.
But we're a better team this year. Can we agree on that? I think.
I'd say so, yeah.
Yeah.
There's certainly our performance floor, I guess, seems to be a lot higher this year. And
that's with injuries to key players, Barnett and Metcalf, right? So that's a level up on itself. Okay, so first thing is the ruck has changed. I think we all agree the ruck has changed from last year, like deliberately changed in terms of rules, but also I think it's been policed differently. The result of that is that worker forwards are worth more than impact forwards. I think that's just a thing, right? And we've had the benefit of that because our pack has more worker forwards than impact forwards. So that's the first thing. The next thing, though, I think is just straight out coaching improvement or development improvement on our team. So Vaimauga, through just tenure, more time in the game, but also coaching, is a better player. Halasima, I mean, he was amazing last year, but he's continued his forward, I think, has developed, quite aside from the ruck, he's developed. Tanner Boyd, quite aside from the ruck and having a better pack in front of him in this ruck, has developed. I think Chanel is a better player than last year. I think across the board, we're sort of seeing the benefit of better coaching, right? But I think here's the big one. Well, possibly the less obvious one. I think our coach is better reacting to the change in the game through the ruck than other coaches. So Bellamy has reacted, as far as I can tell, by doing nothing to the change in the game through the ruck, whereas our coach, compared to preseason, now has, I understand there's injuries, but I don't think it's all injuries. We have front rowers who look like back rowers. We have a fullback who looks like a winger. We have a very fast, low yardage winger on the on the left side that we didn't before. And I think whenever he's been prompted to make a selection decision, he's made it in the right direction for the modern game, right? And I think those 3 things together have caused us to outperform other teams at the moment. And I think that's why we're doing better than we might expect. And I think that will hold as long as the ruck holds. So stop there.
Yeah, we whether it's by sort of chance or by design, they have seemed to have reacted better to the changes than just about any team besides Penrith. Looking at their run of results, obviously had that dip for a couple of weeks where we lost back-to-back against the Tigers and Sharks, conceded 30 plus, but every other game we've conceded 20 points or less, across the NRL, and you've seen these either blowouts or these high-scoring shootouts, and we're just not involved in those, which is good to see. I mean, we're pumping a few teams, but not quite the same sort of haphazard style, I guess, that you're seeing in some of these other games, like that Knights South game, for instance. We're not sort of getting dragged into those. And yeah, it's certainly working for them, and it's exciting to see that. And running, coming down the straight as well. Yes, we'll talk about the Eels game shortly in more detail, but holding them scoreless, and they were there to play Parramatta, and we held them scoreless for the last 20 when they'd fought back. Similar against the Dolphins, scoreless for the last 60 minutes. Similar against Melbourne, did they score a point in the second half? I'm not sure that they did. The Newcastle, similar, scoreless for the second half or the last half hour. Canberra scoreless in the second half. So yeah, it's I don't know if it's partly the way the game is changing or has changed with the ruck rules this year, but I mean some of those stats and those second half performances really point to us being a genuine contender. What do you think, Sammy?
Yeah, I guess immediately rattling off that sort of stuff, I was thinking just to Fonzie about the I guess maybe you would call it fitness, but just the fact that we've got those workhorses through the middle probably plays a bigger role, as you move through the second half. And I think too, like we talked to Jackson, I think it was week 3 or 4, and I mean he self-recognized it that he's having a great year because he knows how fit he is. And he knows that that's so crucial now in 2026 with the way the game's going. I think the line he used, which I thought was really cool, is he said, "If I ever feel tired, I just look at my opposition and go, well, if I feel tired, how bad are they?" type thing.
Yeah.
Because he knows how fit he is. So yeah, I think that plays a massive role just with and to your point, Will, and maybe this is something I'll go and look away this week and sort of compile the numbers, because I feel like the first halves we haven't been dominating, not on the scoreboard at least. But yeah, we are getting into some really good work in the second half. And in the past, we've had these periods where I think, was it last year or the year before, we had that period before half time where we would lapse, or it was sort of like 10 minutes either side of half time where we would lapse. There was a period a couple of years ago where we would fade towards the end of a game. I just feel like with that evolution each year, and Fonzie did a great job of talking through those players who have developed. But I feel like we've also developed the ability to just play for 80 minutes, which, is why, probably to your point, where we're not finding ourselves in these positions where we're like, trading punches up to 40 points or having to go after a game with 10 minutes to go. It seems quite steady. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's. I think I heard a stat on the coverage on Saturday that we haven't since 2024 given up a halftime lead, which is extraordinary for any team.
Wow. Yeah,
bloody extraordinary for the Warriors, where we're used to getting out in front and kind of blowing it potentially at least every once in a while. That's a great stat to know that if we get in front, we're very hard to reel in.
Was it I think I'm getting this stat right, but there was a stat they reeled off in the Penrith game where they said something like it was the first time on Sunday that Penrith haven't held have led at half time by less than 18 points or something. Basically, every halftime lead they've had this year has been 18 points or more, which is an insane stat for them. Crazy.
Looking at Saturday's game, 36-14 over the Eels. I thoroughly enjoyed this one. Got a bit close at a couple of stages. Parramatta, quick out of the blocks, caught us on our heels. Same in the second half. They a couple of tries from kicks and closed the gap to 4. And we just sort of came over the top of them. I think we always had it over them in the forwards and were dominating the physical battle and through the middle. Finished our chances pretty well. Bombed a couple. But yeah, overall thoughts on that one, Fonz?
You might have just ducked out.
Must have. Thoughts on that one, Sam?
I said to H at halftime, I was like, man, like scoreboard, yep, we were decently ahead. Felt like we should have been ahead more. And I think up until we started to score those tries with 20 minutes to go, like it did. I said to H, it didn't feel like the Eels were going to like come back or win the game. You mentioned there, like there were times where it sort of seemed close. It's just the way that the game was sort of shifting with each momentum changer that I just felt like the Warriors were in total control. And then, towards the back end, they just start to really open up and score their tries. So yeah, it was a game where I think they just sort of went about their work. They, I think, eliminated some of those sort of silly errors, but discipline was still, I think we gave away like 8 or 9 6 agains or something. So we were still forced to defend quite a lot in that regard. But like I said before, I just think it's the fact that, you're able to stay, you're able to sort of hold pace or stay on top of them. And then when you need to, you just open up the floodgates and you're able to score points, right? Like that's the encouraging thing for me now is when we sort of want to hit the go button where you're able to score points relatively easily. And yeah, like Cam Pereira's, that kind of speed is, that try that he scored where he just completely went around them. Like, I don't think many wingers in the comp would score that try. Certainly, I don't think there's a winger in like Warriors, almost in history, I think that would have that kind of burst of speed to score a try that close to the line. It's such an asset to have. So, it's exciting.
Yeah, no, I'm a big AKP fan, as our listeners will well know. Fonz is rummaging around there. I can't see him, but I can hear him.
No, I'm back,
You're
mate.
back, Fonz. You're back. We're just touching on our, I guess, overarching thoughts about the win over the Eels, Fonz. So what were your main takeaways from that one?
Yeah, messy game, hard game to read to some degree. So there's a few obvious spots in that Eels defense line that if you want to go after, you're going to find points, right? Like Volkman, as much as we love him because he was with our club and all the rest of it, he's a spot. Yep. So there's a spot there. I don't feel like the Eels quite have their roster in the right place. So to be honest, I think the Eels are a poor roster that's well coached and is playing above their weight this year. Pardon me. So we should be beating them easily. That's
worst
first
defense in the comp too, conceding more points than anyone.
Yeah. So I'm not surprised we beat them by some points. And to be honest, the fact that it was close as long as it was is probably not doing us some credit. And I think there were obvious channels you were going to go down and attack, and we didn't do that as well as we could have. So I don't actually think that was a very good performance by us on the weekend. That's the first thing. The next thing, though, is that I feel like we're sort of doing this. We're winning games without using our strike weapons well. So Leka Halasima, I don't know what his stats were, but 2 pinches of nothing, as far as I can tell. He probably had 3 carries for 30 meters or something.
I think it was only 5 runs, and he obviously scored that earliest try.
Yeah.
But only 4 runs overall, which is
right.
in 58 minutes.
So we're still not at a point where we're using our strike, and Leka. So Leka's playing right edge back rower, yeah.
Yep.
And where's Volkman playing?
Yeah, he's left edge, wasn't he, for Eels?
So how do you not get Leka on Volkman more times in that game? To me, that's crazy. Right? That's just crazy. So we're still leaving a lot of points on the field, not least in terms of like missed tries and all that. Where we make handling errors at the end of plays, but we're just not quite structuring things perfectly. So there's a lot more growth in this team. But yeah, I never felt like we were going to lose. I thought we defended well when the time came. But I actually kind of thought this was a performance limping into a bye, if I'm honest, which is probably a bit more negative than most fans. But I wasn't that impressed with it.
I thought that's one of the things I liked about it, is it always had a danger game feel about it because we had the bye. We've been a tough schedule. 9 straight games with, obviously had the high emotion and physicality of that win over Melbourne, and, sort of got the job done against the Titans in the first half before fading. That game against the Dolphins was extremely scrappy. That really felt like a team, gagging for a bye, to be honest. So to go on a trip to Sydney against a team that, probably certainly bottom half, but dangerous, fair bit of, strike and whatnot, can put points on, even though they are the worst defensive team in the comp. To go out there and then, eventually get away, beat them by 22, put them to the sword towards the end. I thought that did impress me, just because of the state of, the stage of the season they're at, heavy schedule, and with that bye sitting there so tantalizing, it would have been an easy one for them to, I think, Warriors teams of the past to make harder work of than the side did on Saturday. So yeah, I was pretty happy with it. I just found it a pretty entertaining watch as well. Was probably why I'm looking at through slightly more rose tinted glasses, because I found the Dolphins game extremely difficult to take in. But it's good spot to be in, and given the fluctuating nature of the results across the board, bar anyone except Penrith, and I guess the Roosters are on a bit of a streak while playing within themselves. Our consistency, a 3-match winning streak to start, now a 4-match winning streak. That's pretty impressive to see.
So let me ask a couple of quick questions to just tease that out a bit more. So how do you think Healy went, Sam?
I don't. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like I'm not. It's probably not a performance that sticks out. I'll probably just put it that way. I'm not. I can't sort of remember anything memorable. Maybe I've just become accustomed to the way he comes on and does a job, but I'm not sure where.
Solid and unremarkable would be.
Yeah, probably. That's probably fair. Yeah, if I'm not remembering, too much about it, then probably unremarkable is a good way of describing.
Yeah, I mean, I thought his running game was probably the best that it's been this year, but probably because he had more opportunity, more minutes, and did make a line break maybe fairly early on in the piece, or was it in the second half? But I mean, overall, just solid enough. When you're not used to most minutes he's played all year, probably a difficult assignment, and I thought he did it reasonably well, but we're not going crazy for it.
Yeah,
6 out of 10 in the Kingz Container Crew player ratings. Just if you're wondering.
I think that's fair, right? But I think we underestimate the impact Egan has on our structure, where the ball goes, right? That sort of, I mean, again, to me, it's crazy there wasn't more back rower on Volkman. And I think Egan not being out there was part of that. Healy doesn't think like that yet, right? He's a run-first player. He's a, reasonable dummy half. I think fundamentally his passing technique is flawed, right? It's just going to hold him back for his whole career, I think is the truth of it. He's going to be a running hooker, not a passing hooker because of that. But, I feel like there were a number of sets where we didn't quite get the ball to the right place. So let me go another place. How do you reckon the fullback went, Tane?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was another step forward. Still not the absolute breakout performances that I'd probably want to see, but some great moments. That break and try assist was super classy. He's getting involved. He's probably maybe not quite as smooth chiming into the back line as even he might have been earlier in the season, which I've been a little surprised with, because he is, certainly a more natural ball player and than Chance. But I was happy with his performance, and more cover defense highlights, and he's a lot. I think he does play above his weight a bit, and safe at the back. Yeah, I was happy.
Sammy, where are you at with fullback?
I don't know, because I and this is purely really from, well, it's not purely, but it's certainly the conversations that I have with Aish around this is like really revealing, just with, and I guess Aish, probably played with Chan, so he has somewhat of a bias there, but it's perhaps to your point, like with the Egan Healy thing, of just Tane being at that point in his career where I think probably more defensively, Chance just finds himself where he needs to be. Tane, I think there was one moment, and that could have been one that led to a try, but there was one moment in that game where I remember Aish bringing out, he's just like, Tane has to be better there. Tane needs to be in a better position. But whether or not that's just like that was an isolated moment in a game, or whether or not that's a bit of a trend, is not something that I've sort of looked into. But yeah, I probably tend to just lean more Will's side of he offers a lot. He definitely plays above his weight. But gosh, if Chance is fully fit, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't think I've got like an out-and-out objective answer on who I would prefer. I just think both of them are solid, if that makes sense.
And solid in different ways.
Correct, correct.
They're both so far away from being the complete fullback, which is, and they're both very contrasting types of fullback, which makes it, and but still good in their own right.
If you could blend them together,
exactly. Might have some sort of genetic engineering kind of thing. So where are you going with this, Fonz?
Well, I mean, we've got some time. We've got to work out the best 17 fully fit at the moment, and the spine's a big part of that. And there's probably a conversation around wingers and centers at the moment. I mean, do we want to do that here now?
Yeah, may as well.
I mean, we've got Sammy's brain on here. We may as well.
Yeah, it's always good to have another view on it rather than just you, Brad, and I week to week pushing the same people's barrows.
All right, we'll let Sammy gather his thoughts, and I'll kindly ask you, Will, tell me what's your best 1, 6, 7, 9, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4, 5. And one. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you say 9 in there as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously it's Egan, but I suppose what I want to know there is, does Healy get designated minutes? How are we doing that?
Yeah, I mean, I'd play Egan for as much as you can, or as much as he, until the stage where he's not, you don't want to overburden him to the point where he's not quite as durable as or robust as some of the 80-minute hookers around. But I think we're a better team whenever he's there. So yeah, for me, players Egan for as many minutes. I mean, I don't quite think we've seen enough from Healy to justify bringing him on 10 minutes before halftime to be this game breaker. I just, unfortunately not quite seeing it. I really thought we would. Yeah, I honestly would be very happy with the same 1 to 7 that ran out on Saturday. I've got a soft spot for Ali Leatawa. For me, the strengths and weaknesses of Ali Leatawa and Adam Pompey probably cancel each other out, and I'm happy with either. Ali Leatawa's involvement and maybe his defence are probably a shade behind Pompey's, but and Pompey's game-breaking ability probably isn't quite where Ali's is. So, yeah, I mean, either one of those is fine for me. I just would really like to see Loffy keep a spot on the wing. I think we're a far more dangerous team for having him there. Rog is making a good fist of centre, really good fist of it. And apart from not, passing a couple of times when he probably should have the other night. And this halves combination, I mean, just given the way that Metcalf's season has unfolded, or, late start and then another injury, and the way that Chanel and Tanner are playing together, I just, I just can't see a way, and Webster's sort of said as much, that, you can't really change that side at the moment.
So I'm going to probe you before Sam gets in here.
Yeah.
So I understand Webster said that. So are you saying that Lukey Met is our current New South Wales Cup number 7 for the foreseeable future, unless and until a performance contest between him and Cup and Tanner in first grade causes him to come up? Is that how you see it? Because I'm cool if it is.
It genuinely is. And, we've talked about this a bit. I don't think that Metcalf was a slam dunk superstar based on, half a season. And, the Dally M lead last year, you can see from the weekend's results, Dally M doesn't really mean a hell of a lot.
So one more.
Yeah.
So chances New South Wales Cup fullback, doesn't matter what.
Well, no, that's probably, I think that's more tenuous.
Okay, so
I could see them bringing Chance back in.
Yeah, but what would you
depending on the style? Well, I mean, I'm a big Tane fan, and I've they keep winning when he's there at fullback, so I'm more than happy to keep him there, and I like what he brings to the side that's different to what Chance brings or doesn't. So yeah, I mean, say.
No, it's cool.
1,000 coaches fell over and I had to go and select the team next Tuesday. I'm sticking with that same team. But yeah, that's how I'd go. But I think that the halves look more safe, the current halves, than potentially Tane does.
So Sammy, where's the wrap at? What do you got?
Can I probe? Can I do one extra probe?
You can.
Yeah. So you mentioned obviously your likes of both Pompey and Ali. Could you would you see a positive in having both of them out there and putting Roger on Dallin's wing?
Oh, Dallin's wing. I don't know. I've actually been quite impressed with Dallin. There's some shaky moments in that last 10 minutes against the Dolphins, and he butchered a try the other night, but I actually think he's been way better than he was last year and maybe to start the season. I think for me, Dallin's pretty safe. I think, you've got to pick your 4 best because there's a bit of versatility there in the shape of Roger. I think that you got to pick your 4 best players. And for me, that's the top 3 are Roger and number 1, Cam Pereira and Martinez-Lesniak, probably second equal for me. And then, flip your coin for the 4th, whoever's fit or firing. That's how I'd go with my 3/4 line suggestions. Selections, sorry.
Yeah, no, cool. And it's funny, Fonz, like with the Luke Metcalf thing, and I don't know if you saw that clip, but I remember asking Jello that a couple of weeks ago. It might have even been before he came back, or maybe it was after he came back for that first time. And I put that question to Jello. I said, so in your eyes, if Luke Metcalf, as a sentence, is your New South Wales Cup number 7? You're telling me he's a New South Wales Cup player, which is, and not that I disagree with you at all, Will, but it is just a funny kind of
absolutely
conundrum, that this guy who you signed long term, who to your point was sort of touted as our next superstar and a leader of a Dally M for half a season, is our New South Wales Cup player. It's because I don't disagree. It's hard, Fonz, because I do get stuck in this kind of winning paradox of I don't really want to change anything when we're winning. So my 9's the same, my 6 and 7 are the same. I just don't think at all you can do the whole 2 7s, Metcalf and Boyd. And the funny thing is, it's not when we trialed that and it didn't work out. To me, it wasn't even about the battle between Metcalf and Boyd on the field. It was just the fact that there was no CHT. Like I just think that's the bigger missing piece in all of this, was that he needs to be there. He needs to be the 6. And then you can battle out your 7, Tanner and Luke. But to me, it's not even a conversation about having those 2 on the park together, because I think CHT is just playing the perfect 6 role in 2026. You mentioned it at the top about his development. And I think arguably he's one of the informed 6s in the comp this year. So I just think you have that shootout between Tanner and Luke. I think at the moment it's Tanner. I think it is Tanner because on form and on results, he's playing the best. I probably would lean more Pompey, although I also have a massive man crush on Ali. It's probably just being burned by a few of those games where defensively it has been. There have been those mishaps. So I probably lean more Pompey with Roger and AKP and Dallin. For the back, like I said before, I find it really, really hard to make a call because I am so happy really with either. I think maybe just because of the results, I'll lean towards Tane. But there has been times in the past where I've sort of welcomed Chance back very much so when he's been fit. So I think probably just, purely because I'm finding it hard to make a call because we've been winning, I'll stick with Tane. But that one's probably my more of a flip of it.
That's a key point too, because these guys that have been there and are winning have been fit, and the guys that we're trying to force their way back in have had multiple injury problems. It's not their fault, and Chance is a bit of an a bit of a warrior Iron Man type, but just a couple of unlucky things with the head knock and now this neck thing, quite an unusual injury in and out of the side. Metcalf obviously keeps having these different leg injuries, so that it's sad for them, but it's not like they're playing the house down in New South Wales Cup and demanding a recall. They don't have much footy under their belt either.
So while I've got this group on this call, I'm going to now ask you whether either of you would change your answer if you were just trying to work out what combination has the best chance of winning a comp. So not what is the best week in, week out team, but the highest ceiling to win a comp in 2026. Would any of you change your answer on any of the positions for that? Because I have a different answer based on those 2 things, and I'm going to tell you in a minute, but I just thought I'd ask you first.
No, I think at the stage like we're already well into the season, only a couple of weeks from sort of halfway through. We're probably don't have the luxury of particularly playing Metcalf back into form. I think to win a comp this year, and I think that's actually realistic, that this is close to this current lineup that we've got is our best chance of winning it. If you're just aiming to win it in 2027, maybe you'd make a change or two, but to win it this year, I think this current lineup, and again, the difference between Tuapiki and Nickel Klogstad is negligible to me. But otherwise, this is the lineup that I'd stick with.
Sammy?
I mean, that's a great question, Fonz, and I do. It does make me think a lot, because I think I would be able to answer that question better if we had played Penrith or one of the teams. I mean, when I say one of the teams, I mean just like Penrith really is out and out the sort of main favourite, and I'd say our main sort of competitor right now. But playing a team like that, understanding that that's sort of what it's going to take to win a comp, beating a team like that, then we get to see the strengths of Tanner Boyd and can he manage, a game like that, and what does that look like? Because and I'm not to take away from how he is playing and the teams we have beaten and the way we have beaten them, but it's like his strengths have really come to the fore, and I just want to see what happens when it's not going his way against a team that will punish you a lot, and whether or not then we ask a question of, we clearly need a game breaker or something like that. So that's the only thing that would be stopping me from confidently answering that right now. But I think I do lean, especially in that 7 conversation, I do lean more towards Tanner, just for a little bit more experience, the kicking game, and I can't really speak to this. You guys are far better analysts of it, but Aish just raves about what Tanner does, as sort of an off-field ball player in terms of directing the sides and directing the players in front of him, but also the subtleties of the head fakes and the hip movements and the deep into the line runs. So
I'm with you on Tanner at 7.
Yeah.
So Metcalf or Chanel at 6?
Oh no, I don't want to. I don't want the dual. I think Metcalf's an out and out 7.
Yeah, okay.
That's the way I see it. I see him as an out and out 7, and I don't like the 2 7s on a field dynamic. I just don't. I mean, I don't think it works for a lot of teams, but I just don't think it works for us. And I cannot. Like I said before, as much as that debate is between Tanner Boyd and Luke Metcalf, I almost think, and people are going to come at me for this, I almost think CHT is the first one on the sheet out of the 3 of them.
Yeah.
So I think he's almost the most important player in the team. There's just something about it, about the way he's playing and the way that just that extra edge, and it's sort of indefinable. It's sort of Munster-like. I just think he just brings too much to consider not having him there.
So I'm going to go against you both. Give my reasons. Okay, so I've always thought Metcalf is a 6 or a 1. We're way too far down the path for him to be a 1. In my view, he's a 6. The reason I say he's a 6, there's a few. Firstly, I go up the road and watch him at Henson Park here in Marrickville when he was a cup player for Newtown Jets, and he just always looked like a 6, to be honest, or a 1. He was never a 7. He had a 7 in front of him in Cup, and he never really played 7 there, but he just never struck me as a 7. So that's the first thing. It's that sort of having watched him come through a bit. Next thing is, if you look at last year, right, we had a first half of the year when he was playing, we had a systemic problem, which was we couldn't convert pressure to points. Yeah, he could individually convert opportunity to points, but as a team, we couldn't convert pressure to points, right? Normally, when a team can't convert pressure to points, it's a lack of execution on structure. Yeah, and I think that's because he's just fundamentally not a 7. That's sort of my second thing. Now, he may think he is a 7, I don't really give a shit what he thinks he is, right? It comes down to what he in fact is. Now, one thing I'm absolutely certain of is Tanner Boyd is a 7. He is nothing but a 7, right? He is an out-and-out 7, and there is no other room for him in this team except for being a 7, and he is executing the role of a 7 very well. So, to me, it's not a shootout at this point between Lukey Metcalf and Tanner Boyd. It's a shootout between Chanel and Lukey Metcalf. And so I'll put it back to you now before I go on. If you had to choose between those two at 6 with Tanner at 7, which way are you going?
I'll go first. Chanel, without a shadow of a doubt, have rarely been as sure of anything when it comes to what some would say a borderline selection decision. We're 6-0 with Chanel and, look like a Premiership contender. 0-2 with Metcalf, who, looked very shaky. I know he's come back from an ACL, but he also thinks he's the man. And I just think we look like a completely different team with Chanel there. We're too deep into the season to just throw the baby out with the bathwater because of Metcalf's supposed potential. I think that Chanel's got far more runs on the board despite what Metcalf did for a couple of months last year. And
Sammy, I'm not asking you to agree with my other analysis, but if you had to make that choice, right? So who's 6?
I think the analysis you made was like fantastic. My only question to it is, though, despite what you've described in terms of a skill set, is that then a mentality shift for Luke Metcalf? Because we know he wants to be a 7, and I think at times, even to your point with his skill set, he will act as if he's a 7. So is that, do you have to change him mentally? Is that Andrew Webster? Yeah.
Andrew Webster needs, in my view, just my view, Andrew Webster needs to give Metcalf a kick up the arse, tell him he's not 7, he's at best 6, and he needs to reframe his the way he plays into 6. And he won't like that because he wanted to be 7 and he was paid to be 7. But at this point, I actually think that the best halves combo we've got in this club is Tanner Boyd 7, Luke Metcalf 6. And if they can make that combination sing, right, that's a premiership winning halves combo. But the problems we've got is, firstly, Chanel's sort of the spirit animal of the club, as far as I can tell. And secondly, Metcalf thinks he's a 7. So we're miles away from that. But that's my personal view, Sam.
But I probably would agree with you, to be honest. Like, even just probably off the rationale that you described before, like that does make a lot of sense to me. But yeah, that does hinge on a big kind of what if and a big mental shift for Luke Metcalf, who I know in many interviews has sort of, when he was playing 6 3 years ago, was telling everyone, "Oh, I've always wanted to be a 7. That's what I've wanted to be." So yeah, a big mental shift for him. If he was able to make it, 100%, I'll be on board. But yeah, I at the moment lean Will's way in the fact of CHT is. But here's one for you, Fonz. If you put CHT, and this might be a really obvious answer, so apologies if this is terrible.
No.
But if you put CHT alongside Nathan Cleary, is that a halves winning combination?
Yes.
Is that a premiership winning combination? Yeah. Is that because of Nathan Cleary, or is Chanel playing a decent role in that combination as well?
Okay,
so I think he'd be great for Cleary. Yeah, but it is Cleary.
So there's two things here, which is a lot of footy fans, not people on this call, but a lot of footy fans often lose the fact that there's two sides to the game, right? So you got defense and attack, right? And obviously they're linked, they're in a loop. So if you can't attack, it puts pressure on your defense. And if you can't defend, it puts pressure on your attack and so on, right? But Chanel is an out-and-out outstanding defensive half. Yep. Mm-hmm. So he's holding up an edge there. Is he out-and-out outstanding attacking half? No, he's not. He's just not, right?
But he can do that. Just sorry to interrupt, but I think he can do special things like that pass to put Camperera away in the first half. that's rare class, I thought, and I think he's capable of that. And he goes after a game, and sometimes I feel like Metcalf needs to defense to tire.
No,
I feel like he's a bit
man.
more of an opportunist than a go getter.
So I would say Chanel is growing into that role, and he's starting to display sort of skill like that kind of downward face ball across two players, right? Not a lot of players can do that. Yep, but mostly to this point, if you look at his attack, it's been effort, right? It's been short ball, it's been kick chase, it's been that kind of thing. Now, if he's going to go to another level, we're in a different conversation. But I'm just going on what I've seen so far. I agree with you, Will. That pass on the weekend was absolute class. Yep, but I don't think that Tanner Boyd and Chanel is a good enough halves combo to win you a competition, right? I do think that Tanner Boyd and Luke Metcalf at absolute ceiling is a good enough combination to win you a competition. I do think that, right? And that's where I'm coming from at the moment.
If I could just have one last word on the halves combination. I guess part of the thing holding me back from wanting Metcalf to come back in is that he's so brittle. Has never played more than 15 games in a season, combined New South Wales Cup or NRL games. This horrific streak of leg injuries, and what if we mortgage our season on Metcalf's potential, supposed ceiling, and then he rolls his ankle in round 2024, and we've had Chanel on ice. I just think that's probably the one other thing. He's by far the least durable half that we've got as well. And
but that's back to my first question. Do you think that Boyd and CHC can win us a comp? Because if you don't, it doesn't matter, right? If you do,
I do. I think they can win this comp. I think they can win, say, the 2023 Premiership, or even last year or the year before. But the way the parity in the NRL this year, I just think that the top tier teams, their quality is a lot lower. Like, I feel like we're not that far off the top, but if we're playing in 2023, we're probably in the bottom part of the 8 kind of thing. But it's just the way.
I love hearing that. So, Sammy, can Boyd CHC win us a comp? Can they?
I agree with Will though, because they can win this year. I think they can. I really think they can. But that you articulated that so brilliantly, Will, because I don't think in another year where you've got teams like Penrith and the Broncos running away, or the Storm at their best. I don't think so. But I just think this season's a little bit different, and it feels like, to Will's point, we are closer to the top than any other team, inside that top 8 at the moment. So I know it's only 9 games, but because I actually do, I understand your point. I actually do kind of agree. I think you asked me that question kind of in any other year, or if the season had gone like the others, and I think I agree with you that I don't think that combination on paper wins you a premiership.
And I certainly see where you're coming from too. Like, I was excited at the prospect of Metcalf coming back, and it came on the back of a Chanel HIA. I thought, wow, here we go, and then Chanel could be our star utility off the bench, and best of both worlds. And obviously, it didn't work out like that. 2 losses, and Metcalf got injured again. And I just feel like we're a bit deep into the season now to change up a team that is playing really well, playing just about as well as any other team in the comp. Across the first 9 rounds, I do think we are missing. The one ingredient is an absolute game breaker, brilliant ball runner between our 1, 6, and 7, and that's what Metcalf did bring last year. Some of the things he started doing towards the middle of the season, not so much early in the season. It was more your intercepts and your late runaways, but he started doing some pretty special things before he got injured. And if he was able to find that sort of thing, that's maybe the one ingredient where we are a wee bit behind last year's side for me.
So, Sammy, again, while you're here and before Will shuts me down, so quickly on the back 3, Loffy, Dal, Tane, is that too small? Is that too small when we get to September and that's your back three running at your Broncos, whoever's Penrith?
Yeah, I think, like, sort of off the bat, I want to say yes, but I also think maybe symptomatic of this season and what we were even talking about in the forwards of it being
The
ruck.
Yeah,
The ruck. I think maybe that does lend itself to not. And I mean, look, Dallin and AKP and to an extent Tane may be different with Chance, but I mean they're not doing the 200 to 300 meter winger carries that we've become accustomed to with Warriors teams of old, because I think the forwards are able to do more work. They're not relied on as much. So in that regard, I think maybe they would be okay. But, I think when I think of finals footy, I think of, to your point, the sort of the physicality, the bigger men kind of rising up to the top. It makes me think that maybe, yes, they are a little bit small. But I don't know. I do have that caveat of the game, the style of the game maybe suiting them better than years gone by, which bodes well for them.
It's certainly a concern. You'd want at least one big, and Dallin can still play that role. Seems less accustomed to it, I guess, since 2023, because he was like a 200 meter a game winger. Only a couple of years ago, just not quite as busy in that department. I think with Roger in the centres, though, he's still doing those big carries, and kind of like the way that Farnworth takes the pressure off the Dolphins wingers, that does sort of alleviate that a little bit. Like, I mean, he probably, I haven't checked the stats at all, so I could be wrong, but he seems to have more runs and meters combined than Ali and Pompey did when they were a centre pairing. So, if you space that out, I guess it sort of cancels out. Like, obviously Loffy's not going to be a 200 meter a game winger just through his hit ups. But I think, the extra qualities he brings, certainly great to have two finishers on each edge. Like, every week both our wingers are scoring tries, often multiples, which is, rather than 2023 where we're just, going down Dallin's wing because we've got Montoya, who was just a okay finisher on the other side. To have those threats on both sides, and Chanel and Boyd playing really good structure on both sides too. I just, like the attacking threat that we're, both side attacking threat.
So would you agree if Metcalf comes back at 6, right?
Yeah.
And if he does, he's going to play both sides. You don't need Tane at fullback. You go Chance, because you just don't need another ball player out the back of shape, and you just want yardage and defensive control. Would you agree with that or not?
Well, not necessarily, because I actually think Chanel's a far better ball player than Metcalf. And far better at setting up his outside men than Metcalf is. So, I mean, to me, the difference between Chance coming in to this current lineup for Tane or to a team containing Metcalf is not really any different.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
no,
but I can, I could certainly see, like it's that Tane being the extra ball player is probably not as important to me as it has been when I've been pushing his barrow in the past. I think, that Chanel and Boyd probably more so now that, when it was a Metcalf CHT combo last year, I was, quite, because Metcalf wasn't quite that, orchestrator number 7, I was probably more keen for Tane then. So that's probably less important to me, that aspect of his play now.
Sammy?
No, I agree. I think if you've got Luke in there, I don't think Tane's as important in that kind of role. So I probably would lean Chance. But I'm so on the fence with this conversation. Through the course of this podcast, you could ask me 10 times about fullback, and I'll probably give you a different answer every time. So, but I would probably lean Chance if you are going to have Luke there. That makes a bit more sense to me.
Yeah, okay.
Chance does give you this sort of feeling of security.
Which I think for me, like
body.
if you're moving towards finals footy, that tends to be the way and I don't want to be conservative and safe. And certainly if we're, still playing really, really well and we're inside that top 4 and things have been going swimmingly, I'm not tempted to change. I just think, with that word you use of sort of safety and reliability, that lends itself for me to more sort of finals footy. But
it's not just security though. So what it is so a certain number of meters have to be made out of the backfield, right? So if I've got Chance who's going to do 250 of them, right? I don't need Roger to do 200. So Roger can stay fresh and ready to be strike, for example. Similarly, if I've got prop wingers who are going to do that yardage, I actually don't need my forwards to do the same amount of meters. So I can run with a leaner pack, right? So these are all trade-offs. Now, as it's turned out, I think for us, our pack is better than we thought it would be. Like the young guys have come up and the ruck speed's improved, and so our pack is better than we thought. So we're leaning less on our 1 to 5 for yardage, which is good for us as a club. As a result, we can afford to run leaner wingers, but I still think when we get to push comes to shove in finals, I still think we're going to want a defensive fullback is my sense, but I could be wrong. I've been wrong many times with Webby, but that's my sense of it at the moment.
He chance it as maybe 2023 best. I've certainly been leaning a bit more towards him. The 2 full games that he's played at fullback, 155 meters, 144 meters. So hopefully, not saying he doesn't have those huge carry games that became a bit of a trademark still in him, but he hasn't produced them in the couple of games he's played this year. But yeah, that's not to say that he wouldn't.
Yep. Where do we go next, Will?
I don't know, boys. I mean, we haven't even, but like, is our forward pack just so sorted and so solid that we don't really even need to talk about them? I mean, they almost pick themselves. There seems to be a pretty, well-defined pecking order, and we're leaving really good NRL quality players out of our 17 or even 19 now when we're at full strength. I mean, any thoughts on anything you'd change in the way that they're being rotated, or anyone that's sort of, on borrowed time or looking to force their way back in?
I've got a question that I'll throw out to you boys, and it's just, I said this to Aish, it's more of a discussion point. I don't think it's like this is a genuine debate to have, or it's not something that I desperately need an answer on. But at some point in his career, it could be right now, but at some point in his career, Leka Halasima is going to be a sort of 80-minute forward or close to it. But are we still at a point though where him coming off the bench adds more? And I only say that because over the last couple of weeks, you've noticed in the first kind of 20 minutes, those like early penalties, those early errors sort of creeping through. And I'm not saying they necessarily happen because he's starting, but I just sort of wonder if it's an emotional thing, of starting the game and being there at the beginning or whatever it might be. But also to your point, Fonz, around that, only sort of using him 5 times. It's like, if that is a trend that continues, or at least there are times where that is the way you're going to play, are those 5 carries better had when he's fresh off the bench and an opposition's tired and he's able to, try and kind of bust through quickly? I don't know. Like I said, it's just something that I sort of, because to your point, Will, the forward pack's so kind of rostered on, done, set. That's the kind of fine margin of conversations we seem to be having at these sorts of little bitsy ones. So yeah, what are you guys' thoughts on, I guess, whether Leka should be that guy off the bench or whether he's doing okay starting?
Yeah, I mean, when do you bring him on, I guess, is the toughest thing. And do you only want him playing 30 minutes a game? It's a really hard balance, and it's been hard to see him kind of go off the boil a bit over the last several weeks, and his work rate on attack's been pretty low. As you said, he's had those penalties, and the defensive miss early on against Parramatta. I just think he's a bit out of sorts at the moment. I think we saw some really good 80-minute performances where he sort of adjusted to a different sort of role. He still had a couple of flashes of brilliance in him in those games too, but he was making 40 tackles a game, and he was hungry for runs. And I don't know what it is with Leka at the moment, but he just had a great start to the season and just seems a bit out of sorts. I honestly don't know what the answer is or what the best way to use him is, because you don't also necessarily want to bring him off after 58 minutes like they did last week and not have one of the best strike weapons potentially in the game sitting on the bench for the last 20 minutes for a worker type like Laban. So I don't know. What do you reckon, Fonz?
Okay, so our 4-pack as a whole, the ruck interpretation thing is working for us, right? So Fisher Harris has always been a smaller middle, like a smaller prop. Barnett is a back rower converted to prop. Jackson Ford is a back rower converted to prop. Yep. And they are the cornerstone of and Aaron Clark is a hooker converted to 13, then into prop, right? Really. So the ruck interpretation has entirely suited our recruitment and retention strategy, right? So is that good luck, good design? Who knows? Either way, let's bank it. Yep. Then you've got Vai Malga, right? Who's offering a point of difference, bigger body, but he's got the ball skill. He's got not quite, but directionally Tohu Harris ball skills. I reckon he's going to be that kind of player. So we've just unearthed a good one there fundamentally to bring into the rotation. So we just have very good middles at the moment for the current ruck. And as a result of that, I don't think any team is going to fundamentally get over the top of us in the middle this year if we, maintain our first line pack. I think that's the truth. Then if you look at sort of who's coming off the bench, we got Tanner Smith, very good player. I think he's probably a year away. A year ago, I would have said I don't think he's a first grader, like a long-term first grader. I was probably wrong about that. I think he's probably closer to first grade now as a consistent first grade prop than he was last year in a way that makes me think he is going to be one. Then you've got Eddie coming through, Fatya Lofa, who's an edge back rower. And then we've still got this whole sort of logjam on our edge back row. So fundamentally, we have a very good forward back. It is a good enough forward back this year if everything else goes well to win a competition, I think. It will be a good enough forward back next year if everything else goes well to win a competition, right? So we just need to manage that well and then really work out how to solve the rest of it, hence the earlier conversation we had about 6, 7 and others.
Yeah, good position to be in. I mean, to think that we obviously would prefer the Barnett wasn't going anywhere, but that it's not the end of the world. And he hasn't really even played that much this year and we're still flying. And, and Stowell Smith has had some time off too. So that depth is outstanding. The things that Bishop Neal is doing as a 17-year-old in New South Wales Cup is incredible. I mean, you just have to think that he'll be knocking on the door next year. Good position to be in. But
let me ask a question. Sorry, Will.
No, you go, mate. I was just going to say that. No, okay, you go. I'm stopping. You're talking.
Well, I reckon the pack is locked in for 3 years. Like there's nothing. We don't need to do anything with the pack for 3 years. I think what we've got coming through, what's contracted, what's there, even allowing for Barney leaving. I actually think that's top 4 done 3 years. So the real question is, have we got halves coming through? And And have we got OBs coming through or signable? OBs are easy to sign as well, but have we got that? Because to me, that's where we are at the moment. That's a big question.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and obviously there's that crop of young halves that are knocking on the door, Jet Clearys and Ilananes and co. The outside back's probably another step away, but there's some fleet boys that are looking really, really good. That'll probably be playing a bit of cup later in the year and starting in cup next year. But there's certainly I guess a bit of at least certainty around our 1 to 7.
Or Borbrick coming obviously next year. But to your point probably as well, Fonz. I think, am I right in saying that both CHT and Tanner Boyd aren't extended past 2026?
Right. So let's have that chat.
Yeah.
Who are you signing, Sammy? Straight back at you. Which one are you signing? You can only have one. You can only have one. Go.
Well, somehow I feel like I just had my question turned around on me. If I could only have one.
And Metcalf's obviously locked in. So
yeah, Metcalf's locked in. I think with Metcalf locked in, I think I go CHT, which sort of does go against what we were talking about before.
No, I understand. Yeah, I understand.
It's just anecdotal evidence of, unless there is some kind of big mental or cultural shift in Luke Metcalf deciding he wants to be a 6 and being okay with that. And if you could tell me that's going to happen, then maybe I lean more towards Tanner. But I think, given the success,
I've got a steel-toe gumboot that I could use to affect that shift. But which way are you going?
I think I'd prefer to sign CHT. I think.
Wow.
Then Boyd for sure. Yeah, I mean, as Boyd's been very good this year, and he's dominant for our reserve grade team last year. But does he, have the
you
runs on the board?
So you boys are both betting. I think a premiership capable forward pack on Luke Metcalf 7, CHT 6. That's the way you guys think.
Yeah,
this.
I still think that the worst halves combination of the three there is Boyd and Metcalf. I just think I think that Chanel being whether he might be the third best player, and I'm not saying that he is, but I just think the best two combinations both include Chanel. Also, just that spirit animal element that you talked about, Fonzie. He's a club junior. It's tough to let someone go like that as well. It does chip away, sort of tug away at the fabric of the club a little bit. And I don't know. I just love what Chanel brings. It's more of a.
There's nothing to say we couldn't sign both, though, Fonz, right?
Well, is that a chance that we do hang on to both?
Look, if I'm the Perth Bears, right, I'm offering, 900K to each of them.
And,
Yeah.
And one of them's going, I think, because we've already paid Metcalf 900. Now,
I'm surprised that one of them isn't already locked away for the Bears. That's I'm surprised we're this deep into the year without either. You're just starting to hear about contracts being talked about, whether they are further along maybe than we know. But I'm very surprised.
Like Chanel Harris-Tavita is someone who I will respect forever for what he's done coming through junior Kiwis and in the club and everything else. And last year, when people were talking about who should be our halves, I said he should be our 6, and he was. However, and I hate, part of me hates to say it, but the best ceiling for this team is Boyd 7, Metcalf 6 with this forward pack. And if we can get that going, that can win a comp. And I think that's what we have to do for the next 2 years. That's my personal view. And I'm sorry to CHT fans. If you're asking me what is the most certain combination to get us to the 8 for the next 2 years, it's Boyd CHT. Yep. But if you ask me what can get us to winning a competition, not making top 4, not jagging a grand final placement. I'm talking about winning a competition. I think it's Boyd, Metcalf, Boyd 7, Metcalf 6. And so that's why I'm advocating for that. But that's it.
Yeah, no, certainly that's totally valid. I think, I just always land on that I'm not convinced on A, Metcalf's durability, and B, his ability. The jury's still out.
Won't argue with you, mate, because there is definitely a durability thing there. Like if you ask me, is that likely to happen? No, probably not, because he'll be busted, right? But are the other two blokes going to get us to win a comp? I just don't think so. That's all.
Yeah, that's fair too. Because but you know that then not yet, and probably not going to be, top 3 or 4 halves, Boyd or Metcalf or Harris DeVita. But I also don't think Metcalf is going to be either. So I'd like to see one of these other young guys put their stamp on it in the next couple of years. But I don't know if they will either. So it's a tough spot.
Sam, you look uncomfortable. Last thoughts on that?
No, I'm not at all. I'm enjoying the robust discussion. I think you both make good points. I think me and you are on the same page, Fonz. Probably though, I'm more skeptical of whether he can make that mental shift, and also I think the durability thing definitely comes into it. But I think either way, we are. I said before, could we sign both? But I think either way, we're going to be disappointed because one of them is going to leave, and it's going to be arguably, to your point, Will, announced. You'd think, in the short term. So then you wonder what that does and how that affects things as well, right? Like
absolutely.
That'll be very, very interesting. So,
it is really interesting. Like if that, say, for instance, the Cowboys snap up Harris DeVita, or the Bears snap up Harris DeVita from next year, but the Warriors are still playing really well and winning, but then you've got Metcalf fit and ready to go, who's on $1 million a year from next year, but you're not playing him. It's a bizarre situation, and I feel for Webster and the club, and none of these things are seamless. There's so many balls in the air, that no one was probably perhaps banking on Boyd being as good as he was this year, and that's throwing a cat amongst pigeons. So fascinating stuff. It's just good to be talking about it when we're 7-2 and on track for a top 4 finish. What do you reckon, boys? It's a pretty good shift. We've covered a fair bit of ground.
Totally.
Taken up enough of Sammy's time. He's been very generous as always. And probably time to enjoy the rest of our bye week.
I loved it, boys. Great discussions. I might dovetail this a little bit into running it straight tomorrow, Fonzie. You've given me some good fodder, so we'll put it to the punters and see how they dissect it all.
That's what we're here for, mate. We're just trying to advance the discourse, mate. So
get all around Sammy's great work on Sport Nation, the Running It Straight podcast. On what time's that on, Sammy? I think
we're 6 to 7 now, so a bit later this year, but 6 to 7 live, but then obviously wherever you get your podcasts, post, including YouTube. I think we're on YouTube now too.
Oh, nice, good stuff. Yeah. And obviously your calls of every Warriors game.
We're we're home games this year, and then we sort of like select away games. So it's a bit haphazard at the moment, but all the home games at least. Which, funnily enough, boys, I think what was it, the Dolphins game, from the Dolphins game to the next Mount Smart game. That's June the 13th. So I think we play, or is that the Christchurch game? I know we don't play at home until
it was June 13th. That's a Sharks game, and then it's another big gap. So there's something like 3 months where we had one game Mount Smart. It's an insane draw. We've obviously got Wellington and Christchurch in that period, but that could be challenging for the team. Obviously, we've got a few buys in amongst that too. Origin might weigh in our favour. But hopefully we can keep chalking up wins and before we get back to Mount Smart a bit more regularly late in the season.
But anyone listening here, so Sammy's obviously a bit corporate because he's with the corporate stations, but he is genuine, real Warriors fan. So on whatever platform you see him, follow him, because it's not just corporate rubbish. He is a real fan. And, he's one of the first I look to when I, am trying to get content out of the Warriors. So make a point of that, please.
Well said.
Appreciate it.
I concur.
Really kind. Thank you.
Thanks to you, Fonz, as well, mate, keeping us on our toes, especially me, as always. Love it. Good debate, and exciting times. Kingz Container Crew, of course, PlaceMakers. It's been quite nice to a pre-record for a change, actually. Used to saying thanks to everyone joining in live, but hope you enjoy this one after the fact. And Brad and I will have some sort of bi-week content for you coming up later in the week. Some no ugly giveaways, PlaceMakers legends, all that sort of gear. Until then, boys, thank you again. And until next time, look after yourselves and each other.